Daredevil Born Again Season 2, starring Charlie Cox and Vincent D'Onofrio, is a continuation of the made-for-Disney Plus show Daredevil Born Again, a show that is meant to act as a continuation of the Netflix series and Marvel character Daredevil. Season 1 faced heavy criticisms for its pacing, story decisions, and adaptation from the Netflix series, and this season runs into the same issues. I'm Tom the Wizard Man, and this is the Fake Wizards review of Daredevil Born Again Season 2. If this video brings you any value, please hit the subscribe button, as we're making many reviews every single week. Picking up from Season 1, it begins with Wilson Fisk as the mayor of New York, acting as a tyrant with the Anti-Vigilante Task Force, a police force tasked with hunting vigilantes and enacting Fisk's will. The city lives in fear as political opposition, vigilantes, and regular old people are being rounded up and imprisoned for any perceived threat to the mayor. Now, Matt Murdock and Karen Page have to try and fight against Fisk and the AVTF to save the city, while they themselves are being hunted. The plot primarily focuses on the sinking of the North Star, a cargo shipment containing illegal firearms being smuggled for the CIA. That became compromised after Daredevil's discovery of it in the first episode. Before we get into the issues, I'd like to compliment the things that do work about this show. Firstly, Vincent D'Onofrio and Charlie Cox carry this show. They are very good actors. I enjoy them in their respective roles as Matt Murdock and Kingpin. There are also a handful of other performances that I did find very entertaining. I will also mention there was a couple fight scenes that I didn't hate. In fact, the final one of Kingpin going through the courthouse, that one I actually had a lot of fun with. That one was goofy fun. It wasn't good, but it was fun. Issue number 1, nothing happens. Season 2 has 8 episodes with a near hour runtime on each episode, so across these almost 8 hours, you'd think a lot would happen, but no, not really. These episodes feel weightless as there's low to no consequences for the characters, awkward pacing, and mind-numbingly dumb plots. Matt and Karen are actively being hunted, but there was never any point that the AVTF felt like they posed any genuine threat to them. Both Karen and Matt easily take down these trained individuals, so where the story is trying to frame them as an imposing force that the characters need to be careful of, they're portrayed as something akin to the Putty Patrol from the Power Rangers. And it's not even exclusive to the protagonist. Fisk kills multiple people in this show with zero repercussion. Bullseye asks to be killed in retribution for the murder of Foggy, and they just go, well, we're not gonna do that. And then he ends up with Matthew Lillard's character, which we're gonna get to in a little bit. This show feels like they had a handful of ideas for a season, but they weren't ready for it, so they just took the episodes they had and stretched the plots out over 8 episodes. Vanessa receives a fatal head wound in episode 4. Instead of episode 5 acting as a funeral for her and fuel for Fisk to become even more ruthless in his pursuits to get rid of Daredevil and Karen Page, episode 5 is spent going, oh, just kidding, she didn't die. Haha, actually just kidding again, she did die. It's a waste of the plot's time and yours. Issue number 2, great setup, terrible execution. Daredevil Born Again Season 1 and 2 is exceptionally upsetting because it is a continuation of a show that you can actively watch and see how good it used to be. The Disney Plusification of these characters is actively depressing. There was depth, weight, and good writing, which is why this season feels exceptionally sinful because you had all of the elements to make a banger season and you blew it. The premise of Fisk being in a position of political power as he wages a war on vigilantes should be an easy dunk. This is a character who we've seen manipulate and wrangle the criminal underworld, the police, and even the FBI, all under his control. A character that has contingencies and leverage for practically any and every situation. So now you have this extremely calculated and smart character builds up reputation and popularity that propels him into becoming mayor, where he can twist the public perception of vigilantes of New York from heroes into villains and legitimize his own criminal power under the guise of the law. It is sincerely an interesting plot. A couple issues though. There are no vigilantes in New York City. The first season built up this war on vigilantes thread that this season was supposed to be the payoff for, but there are virtually 0 other active vigilantes in this show, which again is set in the Marvel Universe and in New York City. We never saw White Tiger in action in the first season because he was murdered. Iron Fist is nowhere to be found. Jessica Jones was taking care of her daughter through the events of Season 1 and 2, and only got involved when agents went out of their way to go after her. Luke Cage was not in New York as he was working for Matthew Lillard's character. Punisher was not in this season. The only vigilantes are Daredevil and the Sword Guy. And Sword Guy escapes in episode 3 and doesn't show up again. I personally hate the argument of why isn't this character here, because most stories should be able to be self-contained to the characters that it pertains to. Including characters from outside of it as cameos or side characters usually feels cheap, takes away from the main story to try and justify why they're there, or is just intended for you to soy jack at and point at the screen. However, when the premise of the conflict is that the city is hunting and persecuting vigilantes, again, in New York City, having virtually zero vigilantes feels off. I understand that Spider-Man can't show up because of legal issues. That's fine. But what about everyone else? The Sanctum Sanctorum is in New York City. Was the AVTF knocking on Doctor Strange's door? Now you may say, Tom, that's different. Doctor Strange is a hero, not a vigilante. It ties back into the whole case that Matt made in the Kangaroo Court case in the finale. Vigilantes are supposed to be street-level heroes that the MCU didn't set up. How could they have appeared? You know what? That is a good point. There's a lack of street-level heroes they could have used. I mean, Moon Knight is supposed to be street-level, but I don't know what he's considered in the MCU. And he's not in New York. And, you know, Kate Bishop is doing other things. They didn't have time to introduce any other characters. Except Wilson Fisk was in Hawkeye, and that came out in 2021. And the trajectory has been for them to do a Daredevil Disney Plus season after introducing Wilson Fisk in Hawkeye. So you actually did have about 5 years' time to get a better idea and a better plan going for this season. I know it's counterintuitive to the whole idea of show, don't tell. But you very easily could have alluded to other heroes present in New York that are evading capture. In the first season, the BB report was used as an interim between scenes to see what the people thought of the election. It wasn't very good, but you could have done something similar with the news reports talking about how certain individuals evaded capture from odd convenient circumstances, with an eyewitness testimony of an old guy being like, you know, them officers were cornered and then all of a sudden a bunch of squirrels jumped out of the trees and attacked them. I mean, only in New York, am I right? Forget about it. I'm walking here. Bacon, egg, and cheese, salt, pepper, no ketchup on a plain bagel, please. The other issue is that Wilson Fisk is not the intimidating character he was in previous seasons. The character is written as a dummy. He's like a tantruming child pouting that he's not getting his way, and anyone who stands in it will get punched across the room. Fisk in the Kingpin in the comics is physically intimidating and powerful, but that's not what he's known for. His physicality is supposed to be another aspect of his perceived invulnerability. You can't touch him from a legal or political level. Anything that leads to him ends up dead or taking the fall for him, and if you try to beat him in a fight...
Allow me to show you what 350 pounds of muscle is capable of.
Again, not who this character is. In the previous Daredevil seasons, when Matt and the gang are trying to figure out a way to take out Fisk, there is a David and Goliath aspect to it. They are virtually the only ones to try and stand up to him because anyone else who does either ends up dead or with their loved ones and families threatened. And the only way that they were able to win is by coming at him from a completely unexpected angle that he thought was secure. In Season 3, Matt is grappling with the thought that the only way to truly keep his friend safe is to kill him. He's contemplating breaking his one rule because he doesn't know what to do, and the only way he's able to actually stop him is by threatening to go after the one thing he cares about, which is Vanessa. This season doesn't have any of that. Sure, Matt and Karen are being hunted, but guess what? Virtually everything is going after Fisk in this show. The people hate him. The news hates him. Political opponents actively talk about trying to usurp him at his wife's funeral. Any iteration of this character previously would have put that guy in a position where he wished he was dead. Not, oh, I'm upset and I'm gonna crush your back mad. No, I'm talking about this guy coming home to a loved one's murder that's staged for him to be blamed and prosecuted for. That was the old Fisk. I don't know how you're supposed to be fearful or intimidated of this character, who basically is just peacocking for his wife for the first half and then is depressed for the other. And it's not even just exclusive to Fisk's character, it's like every antagonal role in this show. Matthew Lillard's character is introduced as this high-level CIA operative who's trying to gather the illegal firearms that were taken from the North Star ship after it sank. He's a character with the power to aid in keeping Fisk in office or remove him should things not go his way. Now, Fisk has been unlawfully detaining people and keeping them in cages under his whole vigilante war. an action that ultimately plays into his demise. But Mr. Charles is also actively trying to recruit superpowered people for the government. He's referenced to be the one who hired Luke Cage. You'd think that maybe there'd be some type of deal that he'd take any of the superpowered people that Fisk arrested to further solidify Fisk's position of power. A win-win situation for both parties. But no, there's none of that. Because again, there's no vigilantes in this. There is no superpowered people. And also, they free the prisoners in episode 3. A smarter Fisk would have used this character to his advantage. But no. Instead, he's ultimately just another character going after Fisk. They also decided to give Bullseye an anti-hero-esque storyline. You know, the character in Season 3 where they spent a good chunk of the season focusing in on how evil of a character this guy is. No, that guy needs an anti-hero story. Definitely needs an anti-hero story. Now, having this character fight against Fisk and the task force isn't the problem. It would be a logical conclusion for Poindexter to want some sort of retribution for being responsible for getting him locked up in jail, but having him explain what he's doing is out of some sort of higher calling to maintain balance is dumb. This was never a factor in this character's story, and its introduction makes no sense. What, he feels bad now? He's a psychopath. He doesn't feel. The only villain character in this show that was done remotely well was Buck, and he's just a replacement for Wesley. Like, legitimately just his replacement. Daredevil Born Again genuinely makes me upset. I give it a 5 out of 10. If this video gave you something to chew on, please like and subscribe. Bye-bye.